Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the JKWD podcast. We're welcome here for your first time. I think you're really going to enjoy this. Don't let the length put you off. We don't get over an hour a lot, but we definitely did today. And lots of. I think the phrase the kids are using is knowledge bombs.
Is that what they use? Oh, that's a lot better than those. No, never mind.
Yeah.
Knowledge bars.
Yeah. So we had Nick Jankel on today. He's done. He's done. I mean, he does a lot of speaking to companies and governments and um, about leadership and change and stuff. But I think he said a lot of things today that will reach everybody, whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur or if you plan on living more than another 5-6 years on this planet. So we'll get to enjoy that in a minute. But in the meantime, how you doing, Kelvin?
I'm doing great, Mr. Shearer. Thank you very much. Here I am living it up in upstate New York where we actually have blue skies today and sunlight. Whoa. Wonderful.
Don't let it fool you. There's always one more around the corner.
I kind of enjoy it for what it is. And the weather is such that I don't actually have to shovel anything today, so I can go out in it and enjoy it for its sake, which hasn't been the case for the past few days. So, life is good. I'm feeling great, almost like a teenager, but smarter. Excuse me, more experienced. And life is good. How about you?
I'm doing great. It's been a rough week in newborn land. Just somebody didn't want to sleep this week really without being attached to an adult human.
I see.
It took a couple of nights to figure out how that was going to work so that we could also the adult humans could also sleep.
You want so much. You expect so much.
I don't feel like I need much, but like if I can get one uninterrupted block of about 3.5 hours a night, and then a couple of naps during the day, I'm okay usually. Or if I can get 2-3 hour blocks, with that hour in between, doing the baby maintenance. But there are a couple of nights there where I was not happy. I came into this conversation this morning kind of hoarse and not really awake, and then something about Nick's energy, I think, and seeing your smiling face,
I'm glad I could help.
Back up.
Glad I could help.
Yeah.
The coffee probably didn't hurt any.
No, and I've started putting MCT oil in my coffee, which is it's a little bit of a brain boost. I tried this once before, a few months ago, maybe last summer, I think, and it wound up not being a great idea for me. Maybe I put too much in the couple of times I did it, because I got to tell you, a couple of days at a time when I couldn't wander too far from the restroom, if you know what I mean. But now MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides. It's usually derived from coconut oil. So it's just a little bit of non-animal fat to kickstart your metabolism, and it's.
So does it drive them up or down?
I don't think it does anything to your triglycerides.
Okay. I'll check it out.
It's really just hey, pow, I'm here. It hits a different part of your brain than the caffeine receptors.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I may have to check that out. Last I checked, however, for me, if it adds my triglycerides didn't need any company.
No, they don't.
Yeah. My doctor.
So you might want to talk to your doctor before you try that. My triglycerides are just fine.
He wants me to take meds. So between now and my next checkup, I gotta demonstrate that I don't need that.
Well, my doctor is doing everything he can to try to keep me off meds. He says, and he's been telling me what I need to do and all that stuff. So I'm trying to keep up with that.
You'll be happy to know, however, that I have started to change my sleep habits so I get more than the sleep that I am customarily getting.
That's good. And our old guest, or one of our guests, Camille, would be happy to know that as well.
I may email her and let her know.
Yeah, so check in with her. Hey, finally listened. I feel good.
But I get tired quicker. It's like, why do I need to go to sleep at 11 o'clock? What's wrong with this? What happened to 4? Yeah. But
hey, well, if you can be more productive in those awake hours, then you can afford to go to bed at 11.
Well, Josh, one step at a time. First is being awake, then there's being productive, right? Yeah, we just worked it out. But life is good. I got no problems. Life's all right. So
good. Well, we'll just do a quick little. Hey, we're brought to you today by Vitamin K Daily. If you want 4 weeks free, VitaminK.com, VitaminKDaily.com, right? Yeah. I should do that correctly, right? Don't go to VitaminK.com. It doesn't bring you anywhere. VitaminKDaily.com. Get yourself 4 weeks free. After that, it's 19 cents a day that we figure out?
Something.
No, it was less than that.
No, 9.5 cents.
9.5 cents a day. It's 19 cents.
$24.95 a year.
19 cents every 2 days.
Get it before the price goes up.
That's right. Monday through Friday, Kelvin sends you just a daily kick in the pants. So you get going for the day. I've been a subscriber now for a while.
Yeah, you were back there
5, 6 years.
You're doing it now I've been doing it since 2010.
Yeah, so
October 2010. So
I'm probably pretty close to an OG there.
Yeah, you were that was close. So yeah, and you're still reading it. So I like that because you're picky.
Yeah, I am. I do read it every day. It's one of the few things I read every day. Sometimes I just hold off emails until I feel like reading them. But I know this is not recommended practice, but one of the first things I do every morning is check to see what came in overnight. And Vitamin K is my first read every day, and then I can worry about what the bank emailed and whatever else came in. What the boss emailed.
Dear, that's good to know.
So it's VitaminKDaily.com for your 4 weeks free. No obligation to keep on, but I think you're probably going to want to.
Hey.
And I guess if we play some music on the other side of that, you can hear Nick.
Okay, here you go.
Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we go. So, Nick, usually we like to start by asking people, what do you do and why?
Okay. I noticed you said your mission. I thought, God, that's a good question because it's slightly different from what I do every day. Slightly, but
yeah. Well, I mean that really speaks to the why, right?
Yeah.
So, bring it. Who are you? Who are you, and why are you that?
So, My name's Nick Jankel. I'm originally a Brit. Have lived in the US and the UK, and I spend inordinate amounts of time attempting to help individuals change themselves. And the core reason for that, it's not the only reason, but the core reason is so that they can then transform the companies they work for and the societies that they live in, so they fit a world which is getting more and more challenging for most people, and certainly from an environmental point of view. And I guess my core insight is that you can't do world change or social change without doing personal change. And I have staked my life on connecting those two.
And why is that important to you as an individual?
I guess there's two reasons. One is I've never met a human being that didn't need to do some work on themselves to really thrive. And I mean thrive in relationships, be able to truly be intimate with someone without all the stuff from the past coming back up and the issues we have with our parents and all that kind of stuff. So that's the first reason. And that's very personal to me. I guess started trying to find a way to thriving quite early. I was 15. I was like, I need to find happiness that I don't have right now.
You're talking like 4 years ago, right?
Exactly. 3.5, but let's not split the details. That was kind of like the first point of call was, dude, I'm not happy. I need to get happy. So that's my sort of initial thing. But I guess it wasn't much later than that I thought, I also seem to see the world seems to be suffering a lot. People seem to be unhappy. There seems to be a lot of haves, many have-nots. Then I got more interested in the environmental movement, and the idea that we're in a pretty unique time in history where we've got what I now would call existential risks, things that might actually put our species at risk as a species. And so that's become more of the why. So I believe that if we transform ourselves, we thrive in our own lives and we have all the joyful benefits of family life we love, people we love, inner peace ourselves. It's a big thing. A lot of people don't have just able to put their head on the pillow at night and just be like, oh, great to be alive today, rather than thinking, meditating, worrying. And then that win then turns into, we then have more and more power, more resource, more creativity to create the change we want to see in the world out there, which, is a good thing to do anyway. But I do believe we've got some pretty gnarly stuff to deal with as a species.
Cool. How do you feel you're doing?
Not bad on that mission. There are days where I feel like, wow, I'm so micronic in everything I do, is like a little teeny, not even a drop, but you're smaller than a drop in the ocean. And there are days I think, you know what, I'm doing okay. I'm getting some big conversations happening in large organizations. People are listening to some of my ideas. This is good. So, I go between the two. Usually now I feel like, I guess each day I know I'm doing what I want to do, what I would call purpose, my purpose work. And one of the things I often say is purpose isn't interested in numbers. So if you touch one person's life today, that is purpose. And if you touch 10 million, great also. Purpose doesn't do numbers. So it's an important thing to always remember when we're trying to talk about being better people, do better things, is that not to get too worried about the metrics. And that's a very particular way of measuring success.
I will tell you, I think that phrase right there was worth the podcast. That's worth dialing in. That is magnificent.
We are going to say there's more good stuff to come, so don't check.
Yeah, don't go yet.
Oh, yeah, no.
So this is actually very relevant to something I'm thinking about. You said, sometimes you feel like it's a drop in the ocean, other times you think you're doing all right. We seem to be in a world where people want either a perfect system or forget it, right? If some places banning plastic straws, but is that the solution? No, but it's part of it, right?
Mm.
Where did you start with yourself, and where do you think other people can start?
Well, I guess this is a good time to sort of introduce a really foundational idea in my work, which is that we basically have two modes of thinking in any given moment. And there's lots of depth on this in various books and articles online, but the two modes are basically what I would call control mode, and the other one is create mode. And so often control mode, which people often like to, our ego, in a sort of egotistical sense of ego, likes to worry about, do people like my work? Is it big enough? Is it good enough? And then it goes into, well, if it's not being perfect, I don't care about it. And then perfectionism itself for yourself, if my work isn't perfect, then it's no good. And what's the point? And so that's all what control mode likes everything to be neat and packaged and some kind of benchmark that we need to get to. Mm-hmm. Whereas create mode is much more comfortable with ambiguity, with unfolding, with evolution, with what the Japanese call wabi-sabi, the perfection of imperfection. The bit of, so when I first was doing, it's actually very real for me, when I first started doing my own pottery and creativity stuff, I was like, if it isn't really awesome, I'm really angry with myself, I like to still have high quality standards. I'm not taking away those quality standards. But this wabi-sabi idea is that actually you do a really good plate and then it just sort of flops a tiny bit on the potter's wheel. Mm-hmm. And that's the bit that makes it perfect. And I guess that in the work that I do in changing people, changing companies, changing systems, it's never perfect. There's always another drama and there's always another conflict and there's always another issue. There's another trauma to deal with in your own past. That's the bit. That's the good bit, is the fact that we're constantly unfolding, constantly learning. And so when I do find myself go into, it's not good enough yet, I haven't reached enough people yet, my essays aren't getting enough claps on Medium, whatever it is, I just remember to relax out of that mode, because I got into the mode that wants perfection, and actually it's often not the right mode for me to be in a lot of the time.
Right, and better new dramas coming up than the same old dramas, right?
But general rule is have a drama once, process it, learn from it, engage with it, and then let's have another drama. Different drama.
We can make it
then you get married, and then you go, oh, why is that not working anymore? Same dramas.
Excellent. Now, how long have you been doing this work now?
Wow, good question. I mean, one version of that is about 30 years, because I studied medicine originally. I wanted to be a psychiatrist. So mm-hmm. I was already very interested in working with people's minds and then hearts. But in a committed way, I took some deviations into advertising and other strange things. It all made sense in hindsight. Didn't make sense at the time. Mm-hmm. So one of the things about narrative storytelling is you get to create your own dots and how to join them. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a lot of value in that thought, but we can come on to that. But about 15 years of committed, this is what I'm doing, this is my life's work, this is all I'm ever going to do. But I would say that in those 15 years, I have tried out many different business models, delivery models, versions of me, if you like, to find the ones that really work. And that's what I mean by the unfolding. It's never kind of done. You never sort of go, got my purpose, got my vehicle, got my coaching practice, got my podcast, got my book, it's done, it's cooked. It's never cooked. Partly because we're changing, and then partly because the world's changing. So the two things go together. So this constant dynamism is, I guess, part of the work is to be constantly evolving.
Now, I mean, this has been a pretty formative last 15 years in the world, both, from a world events stage, but also clearly a technology standpoint. Where did you start, and how did your practice kind of evolve in your delivery? Yeah, including both your systems and how you've had to adapt to a changing world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still adapting. I'm still realizing that stuff I was even doing last year doesn't quite make sense this year, which is actually very challenging. Actually, I just was going through some website pages on our website with a new team member, and I was like, wow, It's like 9 months ago I wrote this page. I'm like, wow, it's out of date. The language is out of date. The way I'm talking about agility or purpose or whatever is out of date. So there's a constant sort of evolution of that. I mean, I got into entrepreneurship really with the digital explosion of the .com days.
Mm-hmm.
I'd not been a tech guy before that. I was not that interested. And I hadn't been particularly interested in the environmental sort of world. I was interested in social justice, so sort of poverty and human rights stuff I was more interested in earlier on. But I was super inspired by the digital promise, particularly the idea that networks can remove power from the old guardians of power, the aristocrats of the age, whether that's capitalists or government heads or whatever. And that was always very much inspired me. And I still believe that digital technology has the power, as you can see in this very moment that we are here together, that we didn't ask NBC to approve this podcast,
right?
And that for me is massively liberating, and I'm still living into that. Like, what if I stopped asking for other people to give me permission? What would that mean I would do? What books would I produce? What shows? What TV? That's a big thing that constantly, I think digital technology constantly asks us, do you have the courage? Do you have the commitment? Because there's nothing else stopping you. That's a really amazing liberty of digital technology. But at the same time, there's, as we know, with digital technology, there's also a lot of threats from it. There's a lot of challenges that we have to engage with. So one of them I talk about a lot at the moment is, what does artificial intelligence mean for us? What is that something we run from? Obviously can't. So what's the invitation? What's the invitation in AI? And I personally believe, for me, it's to use technology, but also to know what human wisdom is. And I wrote an article actually last year called "There Ain't No Such Thing as Artificial Wisdom." Computers will never be wise. They might be very smart, but they won't be wise. And so that's a great opportunity for us all to engage. And then I guess the last 7 or 8 years, I've become very aware of some of the issues we face environmentally. And I read last week that they now estimate that within 100 years, all pollinators, so all the bees are gone. So, and basically at that point, the entire system breaks down because there's no food. Unless we have little drone bees, which they're working on. So that's a potential solution, but not a particularly optimal one, I don't think. So that's definitely informed a lot of my thinking. And so I now go into the world attempting to balance the threats of the scary world that's coming, but also the opportunities and what it brings us, and the joys from technology and changing societies as well is a big thing for me. The shift between baby boomers and older ways of thinking, what I would call industrial age thinking, and then what does that bring? Digital age thinking. And so as a Gen X, I kind of have a bridge between this older world and this newer world, and I can speak younger and I can speak older, and that's quite an interesting role of that generation is to bridge the old and the new.
Now, I saw Kelvin's face kind of scrunch up on the video here when you said drone bees, and I've seen a couple of those articles. So I'll make sure we get some video on the show notes because they're doing some pretty cool stuff with that. Before we run into that problem, we're going to run into what's going to be a problem for a lot of people, particularly in capitalist societies like ours. And that's, with AI, we're going to hit a point where a lot more jobs than have already been taken by robots are going to be taken by robots. And robots, not just, we've seen them largely in mechanical senses right now, but they're moving into worlds where human interaction was needed. I mean, you said you were in advertising, and AI is getting really good at targeting ads now, the way that people needed to be involved in that just a few years ago. That's going to be a fairly immediate problem probably over the next decade for a lot of people, and by a lot, probably 7 figures worth of people.
Yeah.
How are you looking at that, particularly since you go into corporate spaces with your message?
So, I mean, one of the things I first of all look at all these things is to take off the lens of good or bad.
Right.
Because it doesn't really help us particularly. And just look at what is. And the what is, as you say, the research is showing that AI/robots can do pretty much any routine analytical task better than most of us. And now even non-routine analytical tasks. So routine as in there's an algorithm that you can create, which is if the person watches this advert online, we give them this special offer. That's a routine analytical task. And as you say, AI can do that really well. But we're also getting to a point where AI can do non-routine stuff, so more difficult things that a manager might do or even an economist might do. There's actually one AI which have been already proven to be 30% better than lawyers, trained lawyers at certain things.
Wow.
So the writing is on the wall, literally over there. And again, so you can then either react against that or you can respond to it. And that's what a part of what I teach is how do you work with things, how you dance with the music that's playing, rather than sit there going, I wish it was hip hop and now you're playing a waltz and I'm going to be really angry about that. The waltz is here. How do I move my body? How do I make my moves fit the waltz? And I might have a grounding in breakdancing, but I can work with it. So everything's workable. That's a really important principle of my thinking. So if AI is pushing into analytical tasks, then the invitation is to look at our own work flows, 9 o'clock Monday morning, whenever it is, 6 o'clock Friday night, or if you're night time, whatever it is, anything that we do analytical, you've got to think a robot's going to do it or an AI is going to do it better in 10 years. Okay. So what do I do? Where do I create value, which is not analytical, which is not algorithmic? So some of the big areas are human compassion, caring, sharing, probation work, social work, therapy work, empowerment with kids, healing, teaching. These are all non-analytical. And that seems to be one big area where we go. And luckily, we also have an aging population who need more caring and sharing and looking after anyway. So that's an opportunity, a match. And the other area is it's going to force all of us who are good at specific things to get more into, I guess, what you might call a coaching or teaching role. Mm-hmm. So if you're a designer, then you want to be thinking more about how to teach your lens, your visuals, your view of aesthetics, your understanding to people and how to support them rather than necessarily doing the thing, because you might find an AI can create a brand logo better than you can. Oh my God, or can it? Who knows what the inputs, what are the outputs? So that's kind of an area too. And then obviously stuff like this, a podcast is in some ways a form of teaching. It's a entertainment and teaching. I don't think AI can do this stuff, not particularly well, not particularly compellingly. So narratives, storytelling, inspiration, that kind of thing. And that's really, I think, so 100 years ago, people were talking about this idea of technological unemployment, that machines would get rid of people, and it didn't happen. We actually worked longer hours than we did in the 30s.
With the machines, yeah.
Yeah, but now we've got to a point where actually that might actually happen. We might get rid of a lot of the ball ache of work, the difficult, boring stuff.
Yeah, it's. I was going to say it's the little stuff that's going away. Like for a lot of people, that might be trade stuff. But like I go to the grocery store, and you've got 6 people in a line with one cashier, and then you've got one person standing at 6 self-checkouts with 10 people going through. And, those self-checkouts are cranking through, and the one cashier over there is struggling. Right? I mean, it used to be that you'd have 15, 20 people up front of a grocery store not that long ago, and now you've got 3.
Right.
And you're pushing through the same number of people.
I mean, for example, the minute there's an AI that can scan all my receipts, my invoices, work out where I was, which client it was, puts them all into a thing, sends it to the government. I'm like, where do I sign? because
yeah,
that's like for me. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I don't really want to pay an accountant to do it because I know it's not really that difficult to do either.
Right. And then you have to work for the accountant anyway. You have to get all that stuff together to get over there in the right system for your accountant.
And the accountant gets to do more of what they probably would prefer to do, some of them, which is advise you on strategy and tax. So that's what I mean by that coaching advisory role becomes more important, because the actual sort of the transactional piece goes to machines. The challenge you've got, and this is one of the things that I've just been literally talking about today, is actually there are a lot of people who don't want to step up and become more empowered and do more of the coaching, creative, teaching stuff. That's going to be a challenge, because that's the work that's going to go first, is this sort of, I don't want to have to think at work. So people, a bit of background, a lot of people at the moment are talking about what people call distributed leadership or distributed management, self-management, flat structures where there's no boss, because we're all empowered to make decisions where we are at the edges of the world of talking to a customer. Oh, I can change what we can offer you as a mortgage because I've been empowered, because there's no boss back in Cincinnati. And as anyone who's worked in organizations will tell you, that's great for like 20% of the people. Like, brilliant, I've been waiting all my life to be told I can just go and do what I want to do, and I can innovate and be agile and adaptable and empowered. But there's a lot of people who are actually like, oh my God, that sounds terrible, because I don't want to spend my energy in thinking about how to make, these cereals boxes better looking for my clients. I want to spend my time with my kids. So I just show up and do this stuff from 9 to 5. That is going to be a challenge, because that job is going to go to a robot, because that non-thinking job, which you like because it's not thinking, well, the robot doesn't need to think either, so it can just wander around doing the same thing, ultimately for cheaper. That's a challenge. So that's a bigger political challenge around how do we genuinely empower people from a very early age to find things that they love doing and want to work hard to become good at those things.
I don't know that that's a future problem. I think that's a problem.
It's a now problem, definitely.
Right now, because I know a lot of people. I worked for a long time. I did 20 years in the military. I did I did a stint at a local hospital here when I retired and stuff. And it was, when I got rid of that job, that 9 to 5 thing, I said, this needs not ever come true. But I said, anymore, I would rather collect Coke bottles out of a dumpster than to go back to a 9 to 5 job where I'm just sitting there doing whatever it is I'm doing. And because I like talking to people, I like I mean, I had situations where, I was known as we'll call it a motivator. I used to go around and make people feel better. But wait, why are you on this floor? Why are you here? Don't you have a job where you are? Yeah. And stuff like that, So I got out of that. But there's a lot of people who don't want to think.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, perhaps we've been taught not to think. And I know Seth Godin talks a lot about, the school system coming out of World War II and teaching people to be good employees and stuff like that. And now what we need is people who can think and who can make decisions and not just do what they're told, because there are so many situations that need good thought. And we've also lost our people skills. I recommend routinely, how to win friends and influence people these days, because people don't know how to interact with people anymore.
Right. I mean, a large chunk of the work I do in leadership development is not some of the, I love teaching the innovation, the systems, thinking, blah, 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 all this sort of high-end stuff, high-level stuff. Actually, what most people really need is how to create safety, how to connect, build rapport, how to listen, how to be vulnerable, how to help other people be vulnerable. And that is beautiful stuff. I mean, it's amazing. But as you say, it's ironed out from a very early age. And one of the things I say about my work is if the school system did its job, I wouldn't have a job, because there would be no need to have personal development workshops. There'd be no need to have leadership development workshops, because we would have learned all the tools and techniques at age 5 onwards, because that's what we should be teaching. Because a lot of that content knowledge, my 6-year-old can already go on Google AI and go, can you show me a video about how to do X? So why do we even spend a minute on it in a lesson, let alone 15 years of it? So much so that my wife and I are actually looking at building a school based upon these principles of what do people really need to know, like how to talk to each other, how to be with each other, how to connect with each other. Nourish that in kids, because all that knowledge, an AI will already know it better than you will ever know it, right? So I've done work in favelas in Rio. I've done work in Nigeria, in Lagos, in slums. I've done work in inner city London boroughs, right up to the boardrooms of big banks. Full spectrum of human experience. And I know, I will state my claim that if you give someone some of your time, you can help them find something they really could be purposeful about and become and want to be empowered around and want to contribute to the world with. Whether it's music or dance, the arts, science, it doesn't matter, entrepreneurship. And that's what we need to help people find quickly, because as you said, if the education system has actually stamped that bit out of a lot of people, that curiosity, that desire to do something because you personally feel it's interesting to you. And you know that kind of stuff about the 10,000 hours to become good at anything, you know, probably could be 30,000 from my experience. You can't sustain that level of commitment unless there's something in it that you're really profoundly curious about or purpose. You know, you want to contribute, or you love. I mean, I use the word love a lot more than most people do in this work, because ultimately it comes down to, what do you love? What do you love about yourself and the world? And if you haven't ever been asked that before, which a lot of kids haven't been, that's going to cause challenges when an AI says, well, you don't have this job anymore. Now what do you do? Because you don't even know what you love and where to start with being curious. But you did know at 4 or 5, every child is radically curious. You know, so much so that they listen to anything you say because they just want to explore more.
also to repeat your words in public and embarrass you. So
exactly.
You know, there's a dual motive there for those kids, I think. So okay, what is your? This is going to sound redundant, but you walk in any situation. So when you get up first thing in the morning, what is it that you want to be doing? What do you want to call somebody? Do you want to talk to a board? Do you want to have a personal session with an individual and help them empower themselves? What is your passion?
Wow. I mean, all of it. I have a general rule, which is if I'm not writing or speaking, kind of sharing, teaching, keynotes, workshops, this stuff, then I'm probably not doing the right thing that much. That's my mode. My mode of action seems to be speaking and writing as the things that I can bring most value. Where that happens, I guess the two places where I get most joy are almost extreme ends of the world. One is in big grown-up boardrooms or government departments, where I get to really shake things up at the center of the system that is broken. And at the other end, I get kicks from working with young people, often in the exact opposite corners of the world, where they're struggling to get through the day. And those, I guess those two extremes is where I get my most juice, and everywhere in between. But those are two areas that I do really thrive in. And it's odd for one person to do both those extremes. You usually get people doing one or the other.
Yeah, it is. So now, my curiosity is, how did you get to be the person that can walk into these boardrooms and these people listen to what Nick Jankel's got to say?
Chutzpah, I think, is the first thing that comes to mind. The hubris.
Sorry?
Hubris. Just believing that I can and I'm just going to go and do that. So that's probably the most realistic answer. I guess my education and my early career choices gave me the credibility to get in the room. And that, I guess, is important too. So part of it's just being a bullshitter and a generally if they're not going to have me, I'm going to make sure they get me. Okay. And I get quite turned on in a kind of micro way. It's not my driving motivator, but I do like the idea of what crazy situation can I find myself in So when I did a talk at the UK Prime Minister's number 10 Downing Street, wow, which people who talk about write spiritual books have had this opportunity. I love those kind of weird synchronicities of moments. Last week I was in with the Major General, something of the head of the military in the UK, talking about leadership and stuff.
Wow.
So part of I do enjoy these kind of crazy situations. I don't wear suits. I don't dress up in the way most people think people should in that thing. I keep my own personality and my own thing. And it doesn't always fit what they're looking for. They want someone older and grayer and in a suit. That's fine. I think the other thing also is in my early career, I was in the creative industries, and there's a positive, like if you're young and quirky and a bit out there, that's people actually pay for that. They want innovative thinking, they want creative thinking. So I used to wear this 1970s, like, I don't even know what color blue you could describe it. Bright blue, massive lapels. I was 22 and I was walking.
Oh my, the leisure suit age.
We made my dad get rid of that suit. I remember that.
It was like, exactly.
I might still have one.
It was going to catch fire. So I guess people pay for that quirkiness in the creative industries. And then when I shifted more into sort of people development and leadership, I wanted to keep that with me. And it doesn't always work for people. But there's definitely, and also, so I went to Cambridge University and I studied science. So that has definitely helped me on this journey, that I do have a kind of buttoned down science degree from a top university that has been a useful, I don't use any of the content from it, but the sort of credibility it gave me has helped me open doors that I wouldn't have. But I have to say, back to the original, it's just hubris. It's just knocking on doors and going, hello, I think I've got something valuable for you. Do you want to talk about it? And I have to say, 9 out of 10 doors slam shut. So it's a persistence thing. I can't tell you how many times I have had emails ignored and phone calls ignored and weird meetings that people have just sort of, I can see them go, God, I get rid of this guy, that kind of thing. But for all those, 1 out of those 10 is like, God, we need this exact energy in our business right now. And that's so it's just a lot of it's numbers, persistence, and keep coming back from the no's. When someone said, I think it was a movie, no, it means not yet, and that's I'm
a motivational guy. So Josh and I make an interesting team because Josh is granular in the practicalities of stuff, and he's really got a fascinating mind, and I'm still not sure why he talks to me. But I'm the happy guy, the push it aside guy, you can do this guy. So I think you are a great mix of me and Josh, but you've got more his hairstyle. But getting to the point where you can address those audiences now, I mean, how do you stay up? How do you stay in that empowered, energized state despite the rejections? And it's a question I have to ask because everybody needs to hear this, because it doesn't take much to stop most of us.
Right. So I guess my deepest answer, I'll give you the deepest answer, and then I'll come back and give you some more practical stuff, I think.
Right.
And this is where, I grew up as a radical atheist, really like anti-religion, anti anything that wasn't measurable and scientific. And over the years, I realized there was still something missing, and I went trying to find it. And I now realize the only thing that keeps me going in those rejection moments, and they're still so painful to me. I'm not going to ever tell people they're not painful. Your brain literally lights up in the pain areas when you get rejected. In the same areas if you stab yourself, it's the same pain. So, that sticks and stones may break my bones. That's not true. Sticks and stones break your bones, words break your bones. Everything hurts. So my connection to what I call purpose, which for me is a profoundly spiritual thing. It's a sense of love for the world, love for other, which includes love for myself. Otherwise, you can't have true love for other. That's the only thing I go back to. When I'm feeling bruised, which I do regularly, when I'm feeling like I've sent 50 emails and no one's responded. Right now, we're kind of recession has hit a little bit. It's a bit cool and chilly out there. The only thing I've got is to go back to what's my deepest reason to do what I do, and remind myself and sort of bask in it and bathe in that love. And let go of the numbers, let go of all the sort of ways we hang ourselves with expectations for ourselves, and just remind ourselves that everything's perfect, and I can come back from this, and I can stay and trust that there's some reason that this is happening. That's the bigger answer. And I couldn't find anything in the world that could answer that wasn't in what we might use the word spiritual to describe it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist in maths, and it doesn't exist in science. It's something beyond that. So that's the bigger answer. There are other practical things that I do. So, for example, yesterday I was in a workshop delivering for 9 hours, full energy to a bunch of 30 middle managers who didn't really have much hope and possibility. So I had to bring it and open that up for them. And then I'm exhausted. So one of the things I've learned is how to resource myself, how to take time when I need to take time, before I jumped on this podcast, I went with my younger son and sat by a pond and looked out and just let nature rejuvenate me a bit. So that's become a very important thing, this resourcing myself and looking after myself. What has become self-care in the newspapers these days. Mm-hmm. And there's a danger, right? Too much self-care, and all we're doing is taking massages and having patchouli baths, and we're not doing anything in the world. So I'm not advocating, where life is a constant retreat, but I just know that no one can keep it going the way I do all the time. It's just not sustainable at all. Okay. And as I've got older, it's become even more obvious to me that it's not sustainable. So even now, I can't even really do like a workshop without, I need to go and so for example, during lunch, during a workshop, all the people want to talk to me. Let's have lunch with Nick, the teacher. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm going on my own I sit on my own in a part of the restaurant because I need that half an hour, 40 minutes of not talking and not being the guy, just to bring back some more energy back for myself. So that's kind of there's boundaries in there. That's about not needing to be liked all the time, and just giving myself some boundaries and saying I need to take care of myself. Because if you want me on stage in half an hour delivering to 100 people with a big beam of light of what's possible, you need to give me that half an hour. So that's been the thing. So I guess there's some practical parts there, but I call purpose, which is challenging for some people to hear. I call purpose love in action. It's love turned into actual doing something, doing stuff. And that is the gift. It's unlimited. There is no end to that love. It's a limitless love, and it's within us all. And that's the source of everything I do. And in fact, as soon as I come out of that sort of flow state, or a sense of flow, that's when I start getting sort of angry, frustrated, things aren't working, all that stuff, because I come out of the love and I get into the expectations and what isn't working and what is working, and complaining and bitching and moaning stuff, which isn't helpful. Disempowered.
Good term.
Now, I wanted to roll back a little bit, and I know we're going to get more into the self-care aspect because that's something that we do. But boardrooms and governments are not exactly known as flexible bastions of change. When you go in there and talk to a bunch of people who really don't want to hear it, how do you get over that response? And what are some of the what is some of the pushback you get?
Oh, I mean, loads. So first of all, I try not to be in those situations. So I remember doing a keynote speech for a healthcare company, and I've never had such a negative reception in my life. Like literally, I'm not a bad keynote speaker these days, and I had watched out 60 people like looking at me as if there's a funeral. They were in a funeral. There wasn't one person with the lights on in their eyes going, "This is cool. I'm getting this. This is really what I want to hear." No,
well, all those people are like, back in the early 2000s when lots of people were getting laid off and bosses kept handing out "Who moved my cheese" to make them feel better.
Right, exactly. I was that guy, and I remember calling me off the phone and calling my wife at the airport, going, "I just did I bombed in the most bombing potential way ever." So what I learned from that is, I now don't, even if it's great money, I don't agree to do a keynote speech until I've spoken to the client directly, not just the bureau and the booker and whatever. And go, listen, this is what I talk about. This is how I talk. This is my energy. This is my voice. If you're not into that chat, then don't book me, because I don't want to be in those rooms. They don't do anything for me. That said, you do have to go and warm people up, right? You have to go and be a fluffer for change. And that is a skill. And there is definitely, and this is something I'm learning a lot about how to do this. This is not an easy job. This is a form of it's storytelling, it's influencing, it's persuasion, it's soft power. So I'm learning all the time about how to reach people, how to connect with them where they're at, honor where they're at, not criticize it and go, "You've got it all wrong." Everything they do, there's there for a reason, definitely. All the protection mechanisms, the hierarchy, the command and control, the arsiness, the bossiness, it's all there for a reason. It's not bad. It's just no longer adaptive for what the world needs. So I'm learning how to connect with people where they're at and then go, but there is something over here that you could get towards. The great news, I guess, for my business model and my offer to the world is that because we've got these three big, what I call the triple threat, coming in to every organization, literally every organization, government, business, old business, new business, there's no option anymore but to change. And so the driving force of the desire to change is now getting more, because the world's so fundamentally different from what it was in the 1950s or 1930s when many of these companies were created, or government departments. And so that is amazing for me, because the pain within organizations is getting more and more. Can't hire the best people, can't keep millennials, sinking margins because what we do is commoditize and someone in India can do it cheaper. So much is going, AI, robot, so many threats to business as usual that they're all now going, God, 10 years ago we didn't want to do innovation or transformation, but now we have to. That doesn't mean it make it any easier necessarily to actually get them on the journey, because there's so much resistance and so much frustration and so much just old habits of just block everything, block all those ideas, block all that movement. But at least there's a bigger, what people call burning platform. In most organizations, there's a big old platform burning, which is the changing world is so fast and we're so behind. And that's a great thing, because it's like working with an alcoholic, reaching towards rock bottom, because it's much easier to work with people when they actually have tried everything and they're desperate. And when people are not in that place and you're giving them tough medicine, tough wisdom, they're like, well, it's all right. I'll carry on going as I am for a bit more. And that's actually one of the reasons why we created a whole brand to target younger people with mindfulness and well-being and sort of hip wisdom stuff. And actually, it's not a great area to target, because people are still going, well, things will get better, And then you hit your 35, 40, and you're like, wow, I still have the same negative stuff I had when I was 21. It hasn't got better. In fact, it's actually got worse, and now I've got other addictions I didn't even have before. So it's actually, there's something to be said for working with people who are actually experiencing pain of some sort.
Got it. Give me your phone number. I'll call you later. No. Just kidding, sort of. Anyway, Josh, you look like you got a question over there.
Well, I mean, I kind of jumped back in time there in our conversation, but then, we were kind of getting on the path. We were talking a little bit about the self-care you do, stepping away for a minute, getting a little focused, getting a little alone time. And, Kelvin and I are both, we both have that introvert need to charge alone. Kelvin's speaking in public a lot more than I am. He's a lot more of a social character, but we've talked about this a bunch, that you still need to go over here to shut off a little bit before you can come back and be with everybody. I need a lot more of the, I need days in between usually.
And but, really, it took me a while to figure out that I needed that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I used to think, we've had these arguments about introvert versus extrovert, and because I'm such a public person, they always talk about, oh, well, you're an extrovert. But when it's like I've had times I'm going to address a group or whatever, and I walk up and there's somebody there, and I'm like, oh my God, I just need 30 minutes. I can just sit and breathe. But now I'm on stage again. I got to be up for that person. And it's like, so I have come to understand, since I can sit in my house and listen to the clock tick for days, that I am that more for that energy recharging side. I'm definitely that introverted side, but it took me, 100 years to figure that out.
So onward with the question is, what do you suggest that people do? Because part of the change journey, especially for the public side of us, the side that is going to have an evolving job, where you have to go in and face the same people that you've always faced, but as your role changes, as the company's role changes, what are some of the things that you kind of suggest that people do? I know it's hard to direct 100 people to the right thing, right? Because everybody's different, and self-care really is an individual thing. I love the float tank. I love a 7-story deprivation chamber. Not for everybody.
Like, get me out of here.
But I'm sure that's kind of part of what people have to understand is that this isn't just because they spend 25% of their week at work, and they're probably with their work people more than they're with their friends and family. It doesn't mean they don't need their own space and their own thing, their own kind of plug in the wall and recharge. How do you
definitely,
how do you tell people what to look for what they need?
Well, just to sort of reflect back on that introversion extroversion thing, I believe it's been popularized as you're one or the other, and we all have a bit of both. And like you, I thought everyone would think I was an extrovert, right? I spend most of my time on stage or doing some extroverted type thing. Again, it took me a long time to go, oh my God, I need to be quiet quite a lot. Like if I go to a party and there's small talk, chit chat. I don't do small talk, by the way. I do big talk, but an hour and a half of big talk, I am cooked. I had to go on the dance floor. I can't talk to anyone. I'm like, try and beam out, like, don't talk to me now. I'm in the dance type thing. And so I even got a reputation in my early years as a clubber and raver that Nick just sidles off on his own like a crab, and then you don't see him for 4 more hours. I'm like, yeah, because that's me obliterating myself in the music. I don't want to talk. We'll talk another day. So I think we all need that introversion. We all need to recharge. And even if you think you're the most extroverted, I guarantee that you'll learn about how to be introverted and how to enjoy that introversion. So I talk about 3 bits of time that everyone should build into their week, which in some way answers this question. What you do in that time is, of course, up to you. There's sort of resourcing time, rejuvenation time. That includes exercise. That might include, for me, watching sort of box sets on Netflix and absorbing myself into narratives of strange worlds. We no longer call them guilty pleasures. We call them cheeky pleasures in our house because you don't want to feel guilty about them. But, something that just really is about you rejuvenating in whatever way works for you. And I would include exercise in that. It's really important. The second bit of time I think everyone needs to be able to have each week is reflection time, where you're really reflecting on where you've been at, what didn't work, where you were triggered, where you were hot, where you were irritated, where you were angry, where you were sad, and trying to do some work, inner work, some processing work on that. The thing about that is if you don't do it, most people don't, It will just build up until suddenly you've panic attacks, or you're anxious, or you're depressed, or you wake up at 4 a.m. and you can't sleep. So that stuff just needs to be. It's like tending the garden. It's not sexy necessarily. It's not, but it just needs to be done. And then the third kind of time, I call it noodling time. I don't know. I haven't got a good R to go with it. But like just sort of musing with some ideas, pottering around the house a little bit. It's one of the things that actually went when I had kids. I had no more pottering time. Like mooching around, reorganizing your boxers drawer, that sort of stuff. Really important. I actually really think it's an important thing to have time where you're not reflecting deeply, you're not rejuvenating, you're just sort of noodling some ideas, noodling some thoughts. 20 minutes a week, I think, is probably a good start.
Well, that's probably why most people, do a lot of good thinking in the shower.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
like when you're focused on something else that doesn't require a lot of brain work,
absolutely,
your brain can kind of wander and do that stuff.
Yeah. And there's good science that backs up that when you stop focusing and stop working your ass off and stop looking at the spreadsheet trying to solve it, that's when you shift out of that control mode and you shift into the create mode, and then pop, oh my God. But how many times do we do that about our relationship, or about our parenting, or about our sense of relationship to ourselves? Probably not enough. So that's what I mean by that reflection. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just 10 minutes a week, it will make a difference.
So you're not suggesting, for instance, that people spend, they got their 8 hours of work, they got their 8 hours of sleep. You're not expecting people to try to build, an hour and a half here for that, 2 hours there for that, and still try to connect with your family and remember to get to the grocery store and all that.
Exactly. Well, life's too busy, man.
A little bit of time here and there, right?
Yeah. It's just small things. It's just a little bit of tending the garden. You don't need to be there every day. In fact, people become junkies, personal development junkies, and they spend all their time doing personal development. And that's good for some periods of our lives when we really want to get into our stuff. And I had a burnout, so I had to get into my stuff because I couldn't go on anymore. I was like empty. But yeah, little bits, because life's very complex. I've got, small kids, I've got groceries, cooking, all the stuff. It's just giving ourselves a little bit of time. So before I go to go and cook for the kids, 3 minutes on my own outside, just looking at the stars. That can help me through a 3 hour, full jazz hands dad routine.
Right on.
See, and where Josh is, he can actually go look at stars. Here in upstate New York, they don't show up too much sometimes. Matter of fact, I see the sky today, and it's been the first day in several days where I actually, oh, look, there's something blue up there. So I got to look at pictures of stars, right?
Nice. Exactly.
So as this kind of world evolves, and people do wind up having to accept that, AI and is going to take a lot of the jobs, and when they accept kind of where they're at, people who are displaced, and the stuff that you're talking about now, where do you think your teaching is going to evolve toward?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, the stuff I teach is really, in some ways, timeless. I mean, it's kind of adapted to now. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, it's like this is just whatever's going on in the outside world. If it was in the 70s, it would be, the Cold War. We are constantly being challenged by things that you couldn't predict often. They're often quite scary in their initial presentation to us.
Right.
I definitely think that's accelerated. There's been some really interesting books published in the last few years about the happiness of hunter-gatherers. And actually, all the research seems to show they were actually much happier than us before we got civilized, when everything apparently was so good. That's where actually we started getting not so happy. If you're a hunter-gatherer, all you have to do is 3 times a week do some gathering, maybe once a week do some hunting. The rest is all free time. And so we definitely have an accelerated number of threats, if anything, to our status quo. because we've got AI, but we've also got 3D printing. We've got Internet of Things. We've got a whole bunch of technologies we don't even understand. Blockchain. I mean, these are all going to change things in different ways. So that's coming in. But we've also got this damaged world. We've got climate change. We've got pollinator collapse. We've got pollution killing people. We don't even realize how many people pollution's killing. Depression levels are at their all-time highest. I discovered a few weeks ago that 1 in 4 teenage girls has already self-harmed at the age of 14. And that's just now.
That's high. Yeah.
Yeah, that's high, right? That's just the ones that we know and measure and report. So, and so it just becomes even more important, which is, can we switch on to that, or do we switch off? And so my company is called Switch On, because that's what I believe we have to do. When you get a threat, you either switch off and you try and run away or blame someone or get angry or, try and go back in time. Or you switch on and go, okay, what's the invitation? Where do I go with this? Where can I take it? Where can I dance with it? Where can I adapt it? Which is just going to get bigger. And that's why I'm trying to teach stuff now, because when it's really bad, which we're not quite that bad at the moment, right? It's not. When things are really in crisis, often we don't have those resources anymore left in us because we're so anxious and stressed and overwhelmed. We don't have the resources to do the transformation then, and it's too late. And so there's a window of opportunity now we all have, which is to transform ourselves now, preventative medicine rather than after the fact medicine. And in fact, there's a great saying by the old CEO of GE, General Electric, Jack Welch, who says, change before you have to. And that's really the summary of my work, is preventative transformation. Learn how to transform yourself now, so that when the doodah does hit the fan, you know how to dance with that and make something of it for yourself, and not run into the woods shouting, I'm going to become a survivalist and escape, because there is no escape. The system is too complex.
Pretty soon there won't be any woods. So
exactly.
Exactly. I like to look back at about 120 years in the 1890s. Biggest problem in a lot of cities was horse scat.
Yeah, horse business.
So there was a big rush among inventors to create something that would pick it up, clean it up faster and more efficiently. And then the car came along and made it moot, fairly quickly. In solving and looking to solve some of the problems today, I feel like a lot more companies are doing the car version of the horse scat remover. Mm-hmm. Can we innovate ourselves back into business?
In terms of can we
create something so new that IoT, 3D printing, AI isn't going to catch up with for another couple hundred years, and we won't have to worry about it?
Wow. Don't know. You have to ask Elon Musk. Though he might not be the right person to ask anymore. He's off-piste, it looks like. But I don't know. I mean, I do think technology will solve some of the things that we are facing, definitely. I mean, we are brilliantly innovative species, and there's some really good stuff coming online. And, using algae for energy, or compacted wood instead of concrete. I mean, there's some brilliant stuff going on. And I still think there's going to be some shift in our behavior that's needed that technology can't innovate ourselves out of. Because I'm even just looking at right now, there's no technology for depression. There's no technology for anxiety. There's no technology for hatred and pain and suffering and disconnection and lack of intimacy and all that stuff. That's human stuff. That's human innovation that has to happen, changing ourselves. So I love technology. Definitely think it's got a part of the solution, but I think we're part of the solution too. And we need to remember that and not export all our problems to Silicon Valley.
Great. Yeah, I think sometimes you hit that you hit the thing that stops the conversation.
Well, yeah,
I think,
or either that, or you're thinking so hard. It's like what?
So before, Kelvin, did you have anything else? You were kind of absorbing that last bit there.
I was, and it got me thinking about entrepreneurs versus jobs again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to figure out what the numbers were recently, because the number of entrepreneurs in a row versus job holders, and it seems to me, I mean, when people become entrepreneurs, they're actually nourishing and nurturing themselves and what they would put here for, versus cranking jobs and stuff. So as far as becoming an entrepreneur, I was wondering if Nick might have some insight into. Okay. All right. So, but we'll cover that on the next.
Yeah. So, I want to ask two questions just to kind of wrap up here, and we'll, maybe we can do a part two as and address entrepreneurship at some point, because that's someplace where people are definitely going to have to change. First is is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we missed? I feel like we got pretty far.
Oh yeah, I'm no expectations, no needs, no demands. Just I like to flow in with your flow, and we've got into some pretty deep chats.
Yeah, we did. And the other question is, we'll have a link to switchonnow.com and everything in the show notes. But where can people connect with you on social? Where do you like to spend your time?
Well, I've just actually had a bit of a brainwave. I do all the social. If you go into Facebook, Instagram, blah, 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 LinkedIn, you can find me. If you want to find them all in one spot, go to our website, switchonnow.com, and then there's buttons to go to different socials. But I have to say, I've decided to double down on the old school and do email as my number one.
Email. All right. So sign up for the email.
So if you sign up for the email, if you go to little button called inspiration on the front page, there's lots of free stuff and meditations, and then your email will be captured and we'll send you stuff. I feel it seems to be the one that's working best for us and growing, and I can speak more honestly and say what I want to say and then point to articles. I find social, everything else gets lost in the social flow. So that's definitely my now favorite old school. I'm bringing back the old school and doing email.
Awesome. Right
on. Well, thanks so much for being here. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. We'll look forward to connecting further on down the line and see where this journey is taking you as the next wave of change happens within us. I see a sea change toward the compassionate coming. Yeah, I'm looking at Doug Rushkoff's book, Team Human, sitting on my desk, and I know there's a lot of things going in that direction. So we look forward to seeing where you can help take us in this.
Beautiful. Love to come back. Compassionate entrepreneurship, compassionate capitalism is something I'd love to come and talk about, because it's a big idea to be unpacked by a lot of people.
Awesome.
Great.
We'll schedule later.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to run to my boys.
All right.
Big love. Have a lovely weekend.
Right.
Thanks. You do the same.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkwdpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends, and we will see you next week. Bye. A Better Humanhood production.